Well, good day and welcome to another Gain Inspiring Futures podcast. And I'm joined today by Eddie Grant, the new Cabinet Office Disability and Access Ambassador for the insurance industry. So, Eddie, well, congratulations on your appointment as the Disability and Access Ambassador. Could you tell us a little bit about what the role means to you and what you hope to achieve in it?
Absolutely, and welcome everyone, and thank you for inviting me today. Um, well, to start with, I'm absolutely honoured and was thrilled to be offered the role. I'm following two fantastic ambassadors, Johnny yourself and Peter Hamilton, who have done an amazing amount to move the profession forward and continue to do so. So it was a real privilege to be asked to do the role. Um, what does it mean to me? But to start with, just from a personal perspective, I've been married to Marina for 36 years. Marina is disabled; she's a wheelchair user, and I have spent my life with her, experiencing some of the frustrations that a disabled person experiences. And for me, this role is an opportunity to perhaps look at how we can remove that, what I regard as that accumulation of frustrations that I think disabled people experience. It's not necessarily, always a major obstacle, but every day there's small things that I think frustrate people, and I think one of the things that this role will give us the opportunity to do is to perhaps look at our processes and remove some of those small roles. I think the other thing for me, this is an opportunity really to showcase the fantastic things that we're already doing. And I think that's really important. It's very easy for us to focus on our frustrations, but if we can showcase what we have been doing and the really positive changes that have happened, especially over the last 6 or so years since this role has been created, I think that's incredibly positive. The other thing I want to do is to amplify the champions that we have, like yourself, Johnny, to amplify the really positive things that we can do for disabled people. I can't do this role, and you would have known yourself that you need to really build a group, a community around you to help. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm really keen to do. And the final thing is obviously improve things, look at initiatives. So for me, this is an opportunity to really make a difference. And I'm really excited about that opportunity. Just 2 months in, but really excited about that opportunity.
I think the other thing that struck me from your lived experience, Eddie, is um, the fact that you're someone who's built a successful career in the industry, but you've also been a carer. And I've often thought that the industry doesn't reach out and support colleagues, that are carers to anything like the extent that we should do. And equally, a lot of people are maybe leaving the industry to become carers, and maybe we're not so great at inviting them back. Given this role and the work that you're doing at PFS, is that something that you see there's a need to address?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think of themes, as I've been going around talking to people, and I think about themes, one of the themes is around carers and third parties and how that interacts with the disabled community as well. And look, I would tell you, I've been in the profession for over 30 years. For the early part of my career, I don't think I told anyone that my wife was disabled. I don't think I told anyone about my caring responsibilities. It wasn't something you talked about. What I do now, and I think the culture of the profession and society in general has changed, and that's a really positive thing. What I think though is that there still isn't appreciation of actually how demanding it can be at times to be a carer. And I'll give you a really good example. Rhiannon Goff is a financial planner. She has a child with autism, and she is just an inspiring speaker. She presented. I hosted the London PFS event in the summer, and she was the speaker. And she talked at the beginning. She talked about how challenging it was just to arrive to present. So, the best time to present is calm, relaxed, and you've had time to sort of deep breathe and everything else. She arrived having to deal with all of the stuff associated with her caring responsibilities and all the challenges and then presented. So you start from, and I often found this, you start from a really challenging beginning perspective, and then you do your job. And I think that that is something we have to find a way of helping people understand that. And you're right, to help people who leave the profession, and also come back, encourage them to come back. How do we make it easier? What I found is it's much easier for when you're in a company for a company to adapt to you. What's really hard though is if you're then looking for new roles to find the company that's willing to prepare and prepared to take you on, with your caring responsibilities. And I think that's probably where the hardest challenge is, because most companies, if you go to them and you've been there a long time, want to be flexible. They feel that, you're a valued member of the team. But is anyone prepared to take you on if you have those responsibilities? I think that's probably the biggest challenge today.
I'd certainly agree with that Eddie, and it does strike me that that this is something that that we have joint cause on, because as well as again speaking to the need to support colleagues in the industry who are neurodivergent, it's important that we also share that we're also here for colleagues in the industry who have neurodivergent partners and children.
Hmm.
And that's a big area that of support need that we see. But if I just kind of maybe look at your own lived experience of neurodiversity, Eddie, I mean, you've been quite open about your ADHD diagnosis and supporting your daughter. Uh, how's that kind of influenced your um, approach to leadership in the insurance industry and profession, and creating um, inclusive workplaces where people can bring their whole self to work?
Sure. So it's a great question. Yeah, to start with, I don't think I would have told anyone I was neurodiverse, although I think colleagues probably would have known I was, but it's not something I ever would have recognised or talked about. I do now. Because I've had people come up to me, having told them and talked about it. I've had people come up to me and wanted to talk about it from their perspective and the challenges that they had. So I think it's important that the more we talk about and share experiences, the more it will give confidence to other people. I have to say, in terms of my daughter, I think my daughter's done more to support me than the other way around, if I'm brutally honest. My daughter leaned into wanting to find out about her diagnosis. She inspired me and gave me confidence to go and find out about myself. And we openly talk about, and it's talk about ADHD, but also this sort of you start to understand. And I think this is a really important generational thing, is that her generation are more open, more supportive, and certainly more prepared to see the real strengths of neurodiversity, than I think my generation is. And as her generation become the leaders of the future, I think that's a really positive environment for neurodiversity. I think what we have at the moment is we have my generation in the leadership roles today, and that's where perhaps we need to do some work. But I think her generation are really really supportive when it comes to neurodiversity, which is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I think you're far from being on your own, Eddie. I mean, I can identify with that in my own case because it was my son's diagnosis that kind of made me take the mask off, actually. Because a bit like you, I mean, I thought, well, here I am, I'm a senior leader in this industry, and if I don't do something, it's going to be difficult for people like my son to enter this industry
Yes.
and have the same career that I had. So that certainly was my motivation. And speaking to a number of colleagues across the industry, I think there are many of us in that situation. If I just move on to, the work that you did when you were in senior leadership at St James's Place,
Yeah.
because I'm very conscious that, you helped shape their strategy and approach to supporting their vulnerable customers and colleagues for that matter. Um, Looking through the lens of, say, consumer duty, what lessons from that experience are most relevant to you that you can bring into your ambassadorial role?
Sure. I think if I look at when I started in terms of the role supporting vulnerability, um, you know, it felt at times very much like a lone voice in an organization. I think the work that the FCA have done with the Financial Lives Survey and the other research and the nudges they've given the profession, I think that has been insightful and also very, very impactful. I think that they have, and I think they should be given credit for it, they have really got people to think about it. And Consumer Duty really accelerated the focus on vulnerable individuals. I think it's been really interesting. Companies have had to look at their data, make sure their data is fit for purpose, and we saw that in the recent Chartered Insurance Institute roundtable on consumer duty board reports. Um, and it's really, I think that the FCA and everything has really given that focus. So for me, at in my role, I you know I had to go to meetings and encourage people to look at vulnerability. And I was surrounded by lots of people that wanted to do the right thing. And I think this is quite common that when you talk about vulnerability, everyone wants to do the right thing. I've never been in a meeting when someone said, I'm going to penalize vulnerable clients. They all want to do the right thing. The challenge is what is reasonable? What is the right thing? How far do you go? What is that tension between commerciality and doing the right thing? Also, where you have clients who probably didn't realize they were vulnerable themselves, and advisors who probably at times across the profession haven't been asking all the right questions. And so therefore, I saw in my time at St James Place massive progress. We made huge gains. We helped identify vulnerable clients. And then we started to work out what it is that we needed to do. And I think from my experience, that's been replicated across the profession. The challenge is how far can they go? What more can we do? We clearly can do more. And I think one of the things, and this relates to the disability role, one of the things that's so important is we should start with an inclusive design from day one, which means that vulnerable people and disabled people it's fit for purpose for them. We shouldn't be going, right, what we're going to do is bolt on a bit over here for a disabled person. And I'll share a sort of a lived experience, which has really been very common for my wife, which is we'll go to many restaurants and buildings, and they all tell us they're accessible. Whilst a person that doesn't use a wheelchair can walk in through the front door, and my wife has often had to go in some of the most expensive restaurants you can imagine. We go round the back, normally around the block to get to the back, to the kitchen. We've been in many kitchen lifts where they pull the bags out of food, and then we go through the kitchen, and we're talking about some of the fanciest restaurants. So when they say it's accessible, the process, tick the box, the process says it's accessible. The reality is accessible is not walking through the front door. So for me, inclusive design is about how do you allow everyone to walk in through the front door rather than finding a door round the back, which is around the block through the pouring rain, which gets you in and it gets you to exactly the same place, but it doesn't treat you the same. And so for me, that's really important, is that inclusive design. And that's what I think companies are trying to work towards. The challenge is, how do they do it? How do you do it with systems that aren't always connected? And how do you make that fit for purpose? And that's what I think is the challenge. And that's when I was doing that role, that was the journey we were on. We could accommodate everyone. The problem is they didn't all walk through the front door.
Can identify with that completely. I mean, I think for what's often neglected when people talk about what the regulator wants in terms of supporting vulnerable customers, the truth of it is it's delivering the same service, the same support, the same experience as anybody else.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we kind of need to revisit. And certainly, one of the things that we focused on when setting up Gain is, where do you start? Do you start with trying to bring more neurodivergent people into the industry, or do you start with the consumer? And we actually took the view that if we bring more neurodivergent people into the insurance and investment sector,
Hmm.
well, that basically really does help us embed the inclusive by design approach, simply because you've got lots of people with lived experience, actually, members of your team and working with you. And at 6 years on, it's that's started to happen, and it's timely, I think, because we've now got the University of Birmingham about to initiate a piece of work which is going. They want to look at what's the experience of neurodivergent people when they're engaging um, insurance and investment firms, and what's their experience all the way through their relationship and lifetime journey with that firm. So kind of looking at insurance investment offices and um, advisory firms and brokerages. Um, how do you think we should go beyond tick box compliance and embed genuine awareness of change, and how we can better serve our customers with disabilities and equally customers that are neurodivergent?
Yeah, I think I just want to go back on a point you made about bringing people into the sector who are neurodivergent. I think that for me, I think there are a lot of people who are neurodivergent in our sector. It's those people, it's about people recognizing that is the
Mm.
case, um, being comfortable and happy to talk about that. So I think, yes, we absolutely need to identify people to bring in, but also at the same time, we need to encourage people to openly share their experiences, because I think there are a lot of people who probably would identify as neurodivergent if they explored it, and then allowing them to share those experiences in that inclusive design, I think is really important. And coming back to firms, so I think that it's multi-level. First of all, many firms are businesses that actually just need to operate, so they're open to neurodivergent people. So I've seen financial planning firms, and DeMello's a good example. They have a fantastic video which talks about accessibility to their office. So it's on their website. If you want to come to our office, here's a video. We'll take you around the building. So first of all, if you're someone with accessibility needs, it reduces the anxiety. If you're someone who is neurodiverse and wants to just know the environment you're going into and how you will be accommodated, that's also there. So I think there's simple things which are not about financial planning per se. And I've seen the same with interviews, and you've probably seen them yourself, where someone actually talks you through what's going to happen in the interview
Mm.
process. So what it does is it removes the anxiety, the stigma of an interview. So I think there's that side that's really, really important. I then think there's the other side, which is the process for access to financial services and insurance. And you're absolutely right. If you bring people into the process who identify as being neurodivergent, then and you allow them to share their views and they're comfortable to do so, then actually the process will be absolutely improved. Um, and going back to my wife's experience, the number of hotels we've been into where we have an accessible room, and there is no conceivable way a disabled person in a wheelchair has ever been involved in the design of that room. It's
Yeah.
just not. So if we're going to design things for people who are neurodiverse or accommodate people who are neurodiverse, we've got to bring those people in and allow them to share their views and listen to them when they have their views. And it may be uncomfortable, some of that feedback, and it may mean that it's more expensive to change our processes. But if you want an inclusive design, you've got to listen to people who actually understand that inclusive design. So for me, it's about the environment, but also about the processes and the work you're doing absolutely will make a difference on both of those fronts.
I agree completely. And I mean, I was delighted that the CII New Generation Broking Group reached out to us to look at what they could do to develop guidance for the industry to better
Yes,
support, neurodivergent young people, progressing in their careers. And I have to say, I mean, I think that basically speaks to the work that you and I are doing, Eddie, in terms of being, as people who are senior and had leadership roles in the industry, taking the mask off. Because I spoke about this at Dive-In, the festival last
yes,
week, actually, that it's so important, I think, for senior leaders to understand that seeing it to be it is crucial for helping younger colleagues, um, you know, basically empowering them
yes,
to be themselves. And but if I just for a minute just look at the role that you've got and the kind of I'm conscious there's what 20 ambassadors
yes,
across different sectors. Do
yes.
you see any opportunity Eddie, for kind of cross-sector learning and sharing best practice and pollinization and things like this?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the 20 ambassadors, we had our first meeting a couple of weeks back with Stephen Timms, who's the minister. And we did a introduction with everyone around the table doing a minute or so, which was phenomenal because we had some ambassadors who were leaving just talking about what they had done, and including Peter Hamilton. So you know some absolutely fantastic things. So Catherine Townsend, who you probably know in the banking sector, has done some fantastic work. She has the work she's done for the deaf community, which is the Signing Banks initiative. And there's something there that we could easily pick across to our world. There's the work in terms of the tourism ambassador, which is all about accessibility and having common ways of describing the support and help, so that if you're a disabled person, you don't have to keep on working your way through a different way of things being explained. There's commonality across tourism. And then there's other things, the work that they've done in transport, which where they educated baggage handlers about the importance of looking after wheelchairs when they are on the plane and baggage, and what happens if a wheelchair is just thrown and damaged. So it's an education piece, but what you've got there is a really interesting initiative where they identified what the problem was and then targeted the education to the people who needed it. So if I took my insurance hat on and then I sort of looked at perhaps one of the issues around underwriting and disabled people and how disabled people's choice of products are becoming limited in the insurance world. Is there a targeted initiative to help underwriters really understand and have a common approach, and actuaries a common approach to what are the issues with disabilities, and perhaps dispel any misunderstandings there are. Because at the moment, what I'm being told is that insurance is getting rather than there's more choice at the moment. Is some narrowing of choice, which can't be a good outcome for disabled people.
Do you anticipate any barriers to enabling you to kind of drive the role forward, Eddie? And if there were, how do you expect to, how do you plan to overcome them?
I think the biggest barrier is busy lives. I have meeting after meeting. Everyone says, absolutely, I want to help. And then the next thing comes along. So it's about busy lives. So one of the things I think is really important is to try and keep on top, work out which are the themes, which are the initiatives that I want to make a difference on, and then keep on top of those particular things. Don't get distracted by the next shiny thing that comes along. So I think it's really important. Be absolutely focused. Be disciplined on those things, and also making sure that I articulate that to people, but more importantly to this community of champions, which I'm slowly identifying, so that they also can go out and be the person in the meeting, be the person who can champion the rights of disabled individuals with knowledge, with experience, so that they can act not as me, but for the disabled community.
Yeah. I, if I maybe just ask you to put your professional body hat on for a minute, Eddie, but I'm conscious there's a lot happening at the CII, the PFS to uh, support and drive forward collaboration, and a number of projects, some of them looking at things like data sharing. How do you see kind of data sharing and collaboration supporting access and inclusion within the insurance industry and profession?
So I think it's a really positive initiative, and we've had the FCA in the room. We've been working with organisations to look at sort of GDPR issues. So I think what I'm seeing at the CI, and they've been really positive. What I'm seeing at the CI is a desire to do some really strong thought leadership, and Adam Harper has recently joined there to lead the public policy. So I think that with this focus now on the work they're doing, with the work that they have been doing on vulnerability in particular, and with data sharing, they've got a report coming out in the coming month or so. But as I was at a meeting, I think Wednesday, when we were talking about the roundtables, and at another one, the key is, what is everyone going to do? It's important. It's great that we have these reports, but what is going to be owned by individuals? What is going to be done? What's the follow through? And I think that the data sharing in particular is designed to try and dispel some of the myths that organisations have perhaps been concerned about. Be unfair to say they're hiding behind. I just think they're generally concerned, and if we can give them confidence and the sources of our confidence on these points, then hopefully that will help the client outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I guess looking at the dimensions of the ambassador role, I mean, advocacy and raising awareness a big part of it. You've got a long track record of working with journalists and advocates and champions in the industry to raise awareness of a number of things. How do you envisage doing that in relation to neurodiversity, and how important do you think storytelling is in shifting perceptions and busting some of these myths?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what journalists are looking for is for stories that get a reaction in terms of, and that can be a positive or a negative reaction. And I think when I look at some of, look at LinkedIn, I look at some of the articles, people are sharing a lot more than they have previously done, and you can definitely see there is, greater engagement for those stories. So I think storytelling, absolutely bringing things to life rather than just giving numbers, which historically we've always done. Um, actually explaining what does that mean? What's behind the number? What's the impact? And a really good initiative has been around, bouncing around for a long time, and I think you're aware of it as well, is around the child trust funds,
Mm.
and the difficulty it is for people to get the money out of their child trust fund, and the stories that are being just told, and I think that's a really good example of something actually. It is fixable, it's doable. It's not a major change. It just needs people to lean into it. But actually, we've known about it for a long time. But it's the stories behind the practical stories, the fact that it's you know disproportionately expensive to get the money out beyond the actual money itself. So there is a fix, and the story that is being told, I think, is slowly making a difference. Still got some way to go, and I know you're close to that as well. Um, but I think though that taking that number and telling the story is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, I agree. And looking at industry events, I'm just conscious that there are always a lot of things happening at PFS and CII.
Mm.
Um, you know, how important are those industry events and platforms such as the journal and things, in building momentum around improving accessibility and disability inclusion?
Like all events, it's really important to have role models talking, sharing experiences, and we've seen this with having more inclusive panels. So I think that events are really important for the disabled community, and actually having events where people openly talk about vulnerabilities and disability, and having role models, really important. The other thing is making sure that the right topic is on the agenda as well. And I think that's key. So for me, it's about the visibility, but also the right discussion that's had. If I look at the last 5 years, vulnerability is definitely a topic that is discussed far more today. There are conferences around vulnerability. These things just didn't exist previously. The creation of GAIN has done a massive amount to put uh, all of this onto the agenda. So I think that's really important. I think it's if I look at PFS and we look at just our summer roadshow with Rhiannon talking at different events, and others as well. It's incredibly powerful because what it does is it gives people a platform to share their experiences, and that's what people need to hear if we're going to see any difference made for people at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree completely on that one, Eddie. I mean, from my own experience, I mean, I've got a couple of golden rules, which is when I'm asked to join a platform or speak at an event, I always basically check that you know is there a gender balance on the platform, and is the is the venue accessible for people with disabilities,
Mm,
um, and that's quite important to me, and to the extent that if the answer to those questions is no, I just don't pitch up. It's as
yeah,
simple as, and I think you're right. I think that's um, I think again, come see it to be if people can basically see you exhibiting those kind of behaviors,
yes.
we change things, don't we? But looking ahead, if we were having this conversation in 3 years' time at the end of your term of office, what would success be? What would it look like?
Yeah, so if I come back to the sort of 3 points that I started with, I want to showcase the good things. So I want to be in a position at the end of the 3 years to have this avalanche of great things that we have achieved, that have made a difference. They don't all have to be big things, but basically they certainly will. will be an accumulation of really positive things for the disabled community. I want to, if I think about sort of amplifying our message, I want to have a really strong, vibrant community of champions who who will be people who are going to be in the room in every conversation, really helping the disabled community. And then I want to be able to really um, demonstrate that we've made a difference on some big initiatives. So currently, I'm trying to work out what are those big initiatives that I think we can make a difference on. I want to leave something in play for my successor, where I have made a difference, but I know it's not completed. So I want to be able to say, this is work that you can pick up and work through. I also want to be able to encourage the people who to apply for the role at the end of my term when I go. And I think that's really important. So I want to help people understand what the role is, and therefore be confident to apply for the role because they would have experienced some of the things. And I think in any role that you do, one of the key things you should always do is to help find your successor. Or encourage people to at least apply for the role because you don't. I won't be me that appoints my successor. But you want to give people confidence, and that's I think is success is that you're leaving something that's really vibrant and that's going to move on when you're not there. And I think, and also to credit to yourself and to Peter, um, you're both still around, you're both still passionate, you both want to be involved, you're both sensitive to not stopping me from doing what I want to do, but at the same time, you've both been incredibly encouraging and supportive. And for me, you're role models of what I should be like when I step down from the role, and I think that's important too.
Well, Eddie, I have to say, I've always found you inspiring because I've known a lot more about you and what you do than maybe others in the industry. And hopefully this video today will share, bring a lot of that to life and make that known to other people. But that's a great set of objectives to have and be assured of personally and of, on behalf of all of us at Gain and our support in helping you do just that. If you could give just one piece of advice to insurance leaders, doesn't matter where they are, in life insurance, in pensions, in mortgages, in general insurance broking, what would that advice be?
For me, I think the key thing is to start being inclusive in terms of when you're designing things. Start with making sure that your design is inclusive, genuinely inclusive. And if you start there, then I think you start in a good place. Don't seek to start with something that you end up having to bolt lots of compromises on or lots of, oh, I forgot this or I forgot that. If you start with a genuine inclusive design, then I think that's the best place. And I think one of the things that people often forget is making things inclusive for the disabled community actually has benefits for all of community. It's not just about the disabled community, So shops have learnt a lot where shops used to have very heavy doors. They decided to automate the doors or stop them from being so heavy. And, that benefited people in wheelchairs, but at the same time, families with pushchairs and older people could also get in. And I think that is inclusive design, actually thinking about how you make it work for everyone. At times it feels like bits of the steps of design have been missed, and then we're retrofitting continuously. And that retrofitting is never a good place to be because that just causes problems later on.
And finally, Eddie, for those colleagues who are watching and listening to this discussion and want to get involved, whether, as individuals or, via their organizations, what's the best way to contact you and support your mission?
The easiest way is just to reach out on LinkedIn. So I'm Edward Grant on LinkedIn, and just drop me a note. That's the easiest way to connect. Obviously, I sit on the board of the Personal Finance Society, so I do have an email there. But everything is literally on LinkedIn. So I would say the easiest thing to do is just connect with me there, and I really genuinely look forward to meeting with people. And I don't want to miss the opportunity of bringing in tea, which is my other passion. And I said in my submission to the Cabinet Office, I said I always start every mission by sitting down with people and having a cup of tea and a conversation. And I would definitely offer that to anyone that wants to sit down and have a chat, to give me their thoughts on how I should do this role, but at the same time to see how they can get involved as well.
Well, Eddie Grant, new Disability and Access Ambassador for the insurance industry profession, thank you for being so generous for your time today, and be assured of our support again. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, and thank you for your invitation today.